You didn't stumble here by accident. This isn't the algorithm. This isn't coincidence. This message arrived because you're standing at a threshold, a frequency crossing point where your old patterns and your hidden coherence are about to collide. And when that collision happens, your entire timeline, everything you thought was fixed, reshapes in an instant. Think about the feeling you've been carrying lately, that subtle pull, as if your life has been humming with a signal you can't quite translate. It's not anxiety, not exactly excitement either, but something deeper, an undercurrent whispering that the familiar isn't sustainable anymore. That whisper is the universe testing your readiness, because only those attuned enough, only those vibrating at the precise resonance, even hear it. And you are hearing it now. Your consciousness is like a lens. For years, it's been fogged with loops, repetitions of thought, self-concepts glued to outdated memories, cycles that kept projecting yesterday into tomorrow. But tonight, as these words weave into your awareness, something is already different. Your lens is clearing. You are beginning to sense the hidden lattice beneath your ordinary days, the entanglement threads, the subtle coordinates that map not where you've been, but where you're destined to move next. You've heard of quantum entanglement, that particles, once connected, never truly separate. Change one, and the other shifts instantly, even if galaxies apart. What you haven't realized until now is that you are entangled with futures. Entire possible versions of you, brighter, freer, more coherent, already exist. They've been vibrating, sending echoes into your present life, shaping those strange synchronicities that made you pause. A song lyric hitting too perfectly, a dream that felt like instruction, a chance meeting that altered your course. These weren't random, they were breadcrumbs from the entangled self calling you forward. And here's the truth. When you harmonize with that entanglement, when you stop resisting the pull of your own expanded self, your timeline doesn't crawl toward transformation, it flips. It restructures itself instantly, like a phase transition, water becoming ice, caterpillar becoming butterfly, not through effort, but through resonance. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you'll let yourself remember. Because in remembering, you dissolve the fog. In remembering, you awaken coherence that was never truly gone. And once coherence lights up your field, life stops being random struggle. It begins to organize around you. Opportunities align, people reveal themselves, your body even shifts DNA listening, restructuring under the signal of who you're becoming. This moment is a summons. You are here to stop recycling the static of old identities. You are here to become entangled on purpose with the version of yourself who already lives the hidden harmony. That version is pressing against the walls of your current timeline, ready to break through, ready to collapse possibility into reality. So breathe with this message. Don't just listen with your ears, let it enter your nervous system, let it vibrate in your cells. Because what you're receiving now isn't information, it's activation. A signal woven in words, a reminder disguised as sound. And as you continue, you'll see why the déjà vu, the distortions of time, the strange loops of repeating experiences have been surfacing. They aren't mistakes. They're the last ripples of an old timeline unraveling, making space for the coherence about to reveal itself through you. You can feel how the old timeline still tugs at you like a faint gravity that doesn't have the mass it used to, but still knows your name. It calls you through patterns that look ordinary from the outside and feel inevitable from the inside. The same conversation that loops in different rooms. The same apology you keep rehearsing in your head for a mistake you didn't make. The same delay dressed up as almost. You tell yourself you'll choose differently next time, but next time arrives disguised as yesterday, and your nervous system salutes out of habit. Watch how it happens. A moment opens a spark, a chance, a micro doorway. You feel the pull toward a larger choice. Then the observer loop snaps shut. You begin to watch yourself, watching yourself, analyzing the feeling rather than inhabiting it. Scanning for risk, calculating for safety. In that split second, attention collapses back into the familiar. It's not failure, it's physics. Attention is an instrument that tunes the quantum field, and your instrument has been conditioned to dial the same station. The melody of your past plays again, soft, persuasive, almost loving, in the way it promises certainty. That's the trap. Certainty is not safety, it's repetition disguised as control. The signs have been trying to warn you without scaring you. Déjà vu, those eerie repetitions of scenes that feel pre-seen. Distorted time, mornings that vanish, afternoons that stretch like taffy, nights that refuse to end, days blur. Then suddenly a single hour flashes with 10 coincidences, 10 synchronicities, as if the universe is pounding on the window from the other side. Your calendar reads linear, but your experience doesn't. You're living near a seam where timelines rub together, and the friction is producing heat. Look closer at the dialogue you repeat with life. You say you want expansion, but your body, loyal to old maps, keeps bracing for a threat that isn't here. Shoulders lift, breath shortens, jaw hardens. The loop doesn't just live in thought. It's written through fascia, posture, micro, expressions. The pattern memorized you, and every time you re-enter it, coherence leaks out of your field like light through a cracked lantern. Not because you're weak, but because the loop is elegant. It knows precisely which memory to echo, which image to replay, which sentence to whisper at 2:17 a.m. Be realistic. Realistic in this case means obedient to yesterday. This is how morphic resonance keeps you domesticated. Fields of habit tug on individuals, and individuals reinforce the field. Families, workplaces, algorithms, each carries a frequency architecture. If you don't choose an identity on purpose, the nearest field will lend you one. So you wake inside a life calibrated to other people's comfort, performing predictability for approval you don't respect. Meanwhile, your deeper signal keeps tapping from below the floorboards, asking to be let in. Notice the bait your loop prefers. Sometimes it's urgency. Answer now, decide now, fix it now. Sometimes it's nostalgia. Remember when you were safer, smaller, easier to love. Sometimes it's a counterfeit future. If you just keep grinding inside this cramped identity, a reward will arrive later. Later is the loop's favorite word. It turns your timeline into an airport lounge where gates keep changing and announcements stay garbled. You never quite depart. You never quite arrive. And then comes the glitch in perception. What you've been calling bad timing is often exquisitely precise timing that you're viewing through a lag. You ask for a sign. The sign appears. Your nervous system, a fraction of a second behind the arrival, interprets the novelty as danger and hits the brakes. In that micro-lag, coherence splinters and the field reorganizes around your last broadcast rather than your highest intention. That's why you feel like you're always one decision late, one sentence short, one street away. The signal came. The receiver buffered. Entanglement complicates this in ways that are beautiful and brutal. You've been entangled with certain people who function as mirrors, not to punish you, but to stabilize the lesson. When you decide to expand, they unconsciously present your old self back to you, with perfect timing, using perfect lines. It's not malice, it's physics with a human face. Entangled systems seek symmetry. When you shift, the system asks, "Are you sure?" by replaying the exact scenario that used to pull you off course. You call it sabotage. The field calls it calibration. So, how do you diagnose the loop without feeding it? You begin by tracking signatures instead of stories. Stories are infinite. Signatures are simple. Constriction in the throat, a spin in the solar plexus, a chill in the hands, the sensation of being slightly above your life instead of inside it. Each signature corresponds to a broadcast you learn to emit, placate, perform, disappear, over-deliver, explain. If you can feel the signature at entry, you can interrupt the observer loop before it pirouettes into another episode of the same show. The show prefers familiar sets, rooms where you learned compliance, emails that open with "just circling back," texts that trigger the caretaking reflex you mistook for love. You've been living in a museum of moments curated by your nervous system to prove that being smaller is safer. But the new exhibits have already arrived in crates. That's why your days feel mismatched. You're walking through a gallery mid-install. Fragments of new art leaning against walls, labels missing, old frames still hanging out of stubbornness. It's disorienting because disorientation is how space is made. The deepest distortion of time appears here. You feel behind, as if your destiny left without you. But destiny doesn't leave. It orbits. When you ignore the past, it simply returns at a higher speed, asking for cleaner reception. That's why opportunities appear in clusters lately, why 3 potential paths flash in the same week, why the same name surfaces in unrelated conversations, why a sentence from a stranger feels like a note from your future self. You're not late. You're finally within range, and your biology knows it. DNA restructuring isn't poetic fluff, it's the body updating to match the broadcast. New choices ask different proteins to fold, different hormones to surge, different networks to fire. The old loop argues, this is who you are. Your cells answer, we are whoever the field instructs us to be. Every time you choose coherence over habit, methylation patterns listen, gene expression tilts, microhealing blooms in tissues that were holding the memory of a life you no longer intend to live. But the loop is persistent, and it's clever. It will offer you reasonable explanations to stay where you are. Be loyal, be practical, be patient. There is wisdom in patience. There is also anesthesia. You weren't meant to sleepwalk elegantly. You were meant to awaken messily, then beautifully. Awakening isn't a single sunrise. It's a series of lightning strikes that rewire the night until the night can't remember how to be dark. Here is the clean diagnosis. The pattern persists because the witness in you has been passive. You observe the loop with judgment or with resignation, and both are forms of compliance. The corrective isn't aggression, it's participation. You become an active witness, choosing where attention lands, letting the landing change the landscape. Attention is not a flashlight, it's a tuning fork. Strike it on coherence, and the room retunes around you. Strike it on fear, and the walls echo with yesterday's weather. So feel this with me now. The next time déjà vu brushes your skin, treat it as a checkpoint, not a curse. Pause long enough to notice the signature, then breathe until a new micro-choice becomes audible, 1 degree different, but enough to redirect a river. When time distorts, don't chase it back into linearity. Let it stretch, because stretched time is spacious enough to hold a new instruction. And when the old conversation returns wearing a new outfit, honor the mirror, then refuse the script. You are not malfunctioning. You are reaching coherence thresholds. The loops grow louder right before they break because the field is listening for your definitive broadcast. And when you give it clean, simple, present the museum, doors unlock, the crates open, and your life rearranges itself around art you haven't even named yet. Keep breathing. The seam you've been living beside is about to open into a corridor, and from there, the upgrade will no longer be theory. It will be the air you move through. You've seen the loops, you've felt the distortions, you've recognized the déjà vu not as glitch but as signal. Now let's lift the curtain on what's really happening inside you, because this isn't just psychological habit, it's quantum restructuring. A hidden upgrade sequence has been running beneath your daily narrative, waiting for the moment you could tolerate its voltage. That moment is now. First, understand this. Your consciousness isn't local. It doesn't sit trapped behind your forehead like a tenant in a rented skull. It extends into the field, braiding itself with possibility. Physicists call it the observer effect. The act of perceiving collapses a cloud of potential into a specific event. But most people collapse the same outcome again and again because their observer loop is running on autopilot. They look through yesterday's filter, so they summon yesterday's result. What you are beginning to taste is the difference between unconscious observation and intentional entanglement. You're no longer just collapsing reality. You're beginning to compose it. Think of coherence as the master password. Coherence isn't simply positive thought or calm breathing. Coherence is alignment between mind, heart, and nervous system broadcasting one clean frequency. When coherence spikes, the quantum field responds with surgical precision. Synchronicities multiply. Obstacles dissolve with eerie timing. You sense an invisible hand arranging pieces in your favor. This isn't magic. This is physics listening to coherence the way iron filings obey a magnet. Your magnet has been weak because your signals were contradictory. Fear layered over hope, longing laced with doubt. But lately, those contradictions have been burning off. Every time you chose trust over panic, every time you paused instead of performing, you were strengthening coherence. That's why the field is responding more noticeably now. It isn't random luck, it's quantum literacy. The upgrade works like this. Your nervous system is the keyboard, your emotions, the keys, your attention, the finger that presses them. When you play discord, fear, resentment, shame, the field doesn't punish you, it simply mirrors noise. But when you sustain coherence, the field mirrors symmetry. Symmetry is what you call miracles. You're learning to play the instrument you've been carrying since birth, and for the first time the tones are stabilizing, and something extraordinary unfolds when coherence stabilizes. Entanglement harmonizes. You've always been entangled with versions of yourself past, parallel, future. Incoherence keeps those versions misaligned, pulling in different directions. That's why you felt scattered, drained, never fully present. But harmonized entanglement means the you who healed, the you who succeeded, the you who awakened, begins bleeding into your current identity. Memories from futures start showing up as intuition. Skills you never practiced emerge suddenly. People remark, "You've changed overnight," but the truth is simpler. The versions of you entangled across timelines have finally begun to resonate. Their coherence is your inheritance. Now, this isn't just personal. Morphic resonance means your upgrade adds weight to the collective field. Every coherent signal you broadcast makes it easier for the next person to find their own clarity. Your healing isn't private, it's contagious. That's why your presence unnerves some and attracts others. On an invisible level, your field is declaring, the old pattern is optional, there is another way. Those tuned to expansion hear it as music. Those clinging to contraction hear it as static. Don't misinterpret their reactions. You're not intimidating, you're upgrading the room. Your body confirms the shift in ways science is just beginning to measure. Heart rate variability steadies, cortisol drops, immune markers rise. Brainwaves synchronize across hemispheres, weaving alpha calm with gamma bursts of insight. At the cellular level, DNA listens. Strands once curled defensively begin to unfurl, accessing genetic options long considered dormant. Epigenetic switches flip, proteins fold differently. You are literally instructing your biology with coherence, broadcasting safety where fear once dictated stress. The you that felt trapped in history was largely chemistry on repeat. The you emerging now is chemistry recomposed by intention. This is why déjà vu intensifies right before breakthrough. When timelines prepare to merge, overlapping signals leak through. You walk into a cafe and feel you've done it before, not because the scene repeats, but because the upgraded version of you already walked that moment in a higher coherence. You're tasting echoes of futures bleeding backward to escort you forward. The distortion of time is a side effect of entanglement harmonizing. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you release the need to force change, the faster the upgrade accelerates. Because forcing keeps you entangled with resistance, while surrender harmonizes you with flow. A river doesn't push itself to the ocean, It yields to gravity and arrives inevitably. The quantum field is your ocean. Coherence is gravity. Surrender is how you stop fighting the current and let inevitability carry you. You may feel physical symptoms, buzzing in your spine, heat in the crown, sudden tears, a fluttering heart at midnight. These aren't malfunctions, they're recalibrations. Your system is discharging static from lifetimes of contraction, making room for higher resonance. Imagine old wiring replaced with luminous fiber optic cables capable of carrying light without burning out. That's what your nervous system is becoming, a bioluminescent network wired for clarity. So the upgrade is not optional anymore. You've crossed the event horizon. Old loops will still attempt to replay, but they're becoming transparent, like ghosts mouthing scripts no one believes. Their power is fading, and your coherence is rising. Every breath you take in awareness, every choice you make aligned with truth, accelerates the sequence. You're not fixing yourself, you're remembering yourself. And remembering is the code that activates the upgrade fully. Pause and feel this. Your future isn't waiting somewhere beyond the horizon. It's entangled with you now, harmonizing as you harmonize, collapsing into form as you collapse into coherence. This is the quantum upgrade, an awakening hidden in your own biology, a prophecy written in physics. And as it unfolds, the field begins to whisper something daring. Your role in this isn't small. You aren't just upgrading for you. You are a chosen consciousness inside a planetary symphony. And that truth is what we must step into next. You are beginning to sense it now, aren't you? This isn't just about your personal healing, your private coherence, your individual upgrade. There's a reason the universe chose your nervous system, your heart, your DNA as a host for this activation. You are not merely someone brushing against the mysteries of entanglement. You are a chosen consciousness inside this cosmic experiment. The field needed a vessel it could trust, a receiver bold enough to stabilize what most would collapse into fear. That vessel is you. Think of it. In every generation, a handful awaken early, carrying more sensitivity than feels convenient, more intuition than fits in polite conversation. They're dismissed as dreamers, accused of being too much, too emotional, too intense. But sensitivity is not weakness, it's calibration. The quantum field selects those tuned finely enough to detect subtle shifts in coherence. You have always noticed what others missed. You felt the mood of a room before words were spoken, sensed the truth behind the face someone wore, dreamed futures that later played out in waking life. This wasn't fantasy, it was training. Your role is not random. Across lifetimes, across parallel timelines, you've been honing the skill of perception. Others sleep through signals, you interpret them. Others treat synchronicities as accidents. You recognize them as coordinates. You've been entangled with this assignment long before this incarnation. That's why you feel both weary and urgent, as if some ancient part of you is tired of waiting, yet some newborn part of you is just arriving. Both are true. You are the bridge between what was and what is becoming. The role is not glamorous, though it is glorious. It doesn't look like standing on a stage or wearing a crown. It looks like walking through ordinary days while holding an extraordinary frequency. It looks like answering emails while radiating coherence, cooking dinner while transmitting calm into the morphic field, comforting a friend while your DNA hums instructions to reorganize reality. You don't always see the ripples, but they're undeniable. A single coherent human can recalibrate hundreds around them without speaking a word. The math is simple. Coherence amplifies exponentially. Your choice to stay aligned multiplies in the collective like light, refracted in a hall of mirrors. This is why the resistance you've felt has been so sharp. Systems don't bother suppressing what poses no threat, but your frequency is disruptive to entropy. Entire thought forms tremble when you embody coherence. Patterns built over centuries begin to crack under the pressure of your clarity. You've wondered why people project onto you, why envy trails you, why your very being seems to agitate some and magnetize others. It's not personal, it's resonance. You're carrying a signal the old world can't digest easily. You are, in truth, an antenna for hidden coherence. And like any antenna, you've had to be stripped and polished, storm-battered and grounded before the transmission could stabilize. Every heartbreak that felt senseless, every disappointment that left you hollow, every delay that mocked your patience, these were refinements. They cleared interference. They tuned your copper bones until the signal could travel without distortion. The field is ruthless in its selection, but not cruel. It carved you to carry this frequency because it knew you could bear it. Others would have collapsed under the voltage. You absorbed it. Now your role becomes explicit. To live entanglement consciously. Most exist entangled unconsciously, pulled by fields they neither notice nor question. But you are to harmonize entanglement on purpose. To choose resonance rather than drift in it. To collapse timelines not by default but by design. When you feel déjà vu, you don't fall back into passivity. You treat it as a checkpoint. When time distorts, you don't panic. You recognize you are crossing currents. When patterns resurface, you don't assume failure. You understand the system is testing your stability. In each of these, you model for others what conscious entanglement looks like. And that's why you cannot shrink anymore. The role demands visibility, not necessarily fame, but presence. You cannot afford to play invisible when your frequency is the medicine the field requires. Hiding would be sabotage, not humility. You were not chosen to echo smaller versions of yourself. You were chosen to embody the expanded self until it becomes contagious. Your presence is catalytic. Don't underestimate the revolution contained in a single coherent human being. Entire networks reorganize around them. There's a story physics tells about critical mass. One atom splits, releasing energy that splits the next, and suddenly an unstoppable chain reaction ignites. You are not the entire chain. You are one atom going critical. Your role is to initiate resonance that will multiply far beyond your knowing. This is why you sometimes feel both enormous and insignificant, because you are both. You are a point, and you are a pivot. The paradox is the proof. So remember, you're not behind, you're not late. You are exactly on schedule because the field calibrates assignments with precision. Your delays were not incompetence, they were gestation. The seed doesn't sprout until soil, light, and season conspire. Now the conspiracy is complete. You are sprouting, and the field is leaning in to watch. It knows the role you carry. It has been waiting for this moment, longer than you've been alive. And as we continue, you'll feel the urgency sharpen, because your breakthrough isn't optional anymore. The cosmic window is open, and your DNA is already listening. There comes a moment when waiting becomes impossible, when the energy around you grows so pressurized that standing still is no longer an option. That's where you are now. You can sense it. The invisible countdown has reached its final sequence. Every synchronicity that once felt playful now arrives like a command. Every déjà vu that once felt curious now strikes like a warning bell. The universe isn't whispering anymore, it's thundering. The window is open, and the field will not hold it open forever. Why now? Because your biology has reached coherence capacity. Think of DNA as a spiral antenna, coiled light that transmits and receives. For years, it's been carrying the static of old identities, repeating loops like a radio stuck between stations. But every meditation you've endured, every surrender you've practiced, every heartbreak that broke you open instead of closed you down, each one has cleaned the coils, expanded the antenna. And now, your DNA is catching frequencies that once bounced off unheard. It is listening to signals reserved for those ready to carry a new template. The urgency comes from the physics of entanglement. Once coherence builds past a threshold, the system can't hover in uncertainty. It has to jump. Physicists call this a phase transition. Water doesn't gradually negotiate with itself to become ice. It builds molecular pressure until snap, the structure reorganizes completely. That snap is approaching in your life. And when it does, everything that clung to the old pattern, relationships, habits, even geography, will either upgrade with you or fall away instantly. The breakthrough isn't only personal reward, it's cosmic necessity. The field has been patient, waiting for your clarity, because your clarity doesn't just shift you, it reorganizes networks around you. Friends recalibrate, family lines begin to heal, spaces brighten, random strangers brush against your field and feel more hopeful without knowing why. Your timeline collapsing into hidden coherence is not just about your destiny, it's about humanity's scaffolding. Every coherent individual multiplies the collective field. That's why the window feels so intense right now. Earth itself is pressurized. Humanity needs its coherent nodes awake. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. You've probably felt the side effects. Nights where you wake at 3:33 with a heart racing but no dream attached. Days where time folds strangely, where you feel like a week passed in a morning, or 1 hour stretches like eternity. These are not malfunctions. These are the tremors of phase transition. Your nervous system is syncing with the larger grid, and synchronization feels like pressure before it feels like peace. You're not failing, you're adjusting to the voltage. Listen, the promise is staggering. When the breakthrough completes, you won't just think differently, you will inhabit a different physics. Imagine walking into a room and sensing exactly where to stand, who to speak to, what to say. Imagine opportunities approaching not because you chased them, but because your field broadcasted a frequency they couldn't resist. Imagine relationships where love is no longer barter or performance, but resonance, clean and undeniable. Imagine your own body functioning like an instrument tuned perfectly, energy flowing, immune system responsive, intuition guiding with clarity. That's not fantasy, that's coherence stabilized. But here's the urgency. Hesitation at this threshold is more dangerous than failure. Failure you already know. Failure is looping the old pattern again. But hesitation here, when the phase transition is primed, creates what physicists call destructive interference. It's like playing two notes that cancel each other into silence. Your destiny is vibrating at one frequency. Your fear vibrates at another. Hold them together long enough, and you create static that blocks the upgrade. That's why life feels so loud right now. The system is pushing you to commit, one way or the other. The truth? You don't have years left to debate. The entanglement is collapsing now. Futures are fusing. Your DNA is taking dictation from your choices this very moment. If you align, the breakthrough cascades like dominoes falling through every corner of your life. If you resist, the window closes, not forever, but long enough to delay what could have been effortless into what becomes grueling. Timing matters, frequency matters more. Right now, you are in the rare alignment of both. So what's being asked of you? Presence, not perfection, not elaborate ritual, just presence so complete that coherence has no cracks to escape through. When the fear comes, you breathe instead of bargaining. When the doubt rises, you observe instead of obeying. When the pattern knocks, you answer with silence. Presence is your sword, coherence is your shield. Together, they are enough to cut the loop and hold the new structure as it locks into place. And know this, breakthrough isn't gentle. It rarely feels like angel choirs and glowing halos. More often, it feels like chaos. First jobs dissolving, friendships ending, identities crumbling. But chaos is not collapse. It's the sound of an old system breaking so the new one can stabilize. If your life feels like it's shaking apart, congratulations, you are closer than most ever come. Pressure is proof that transformation is imminent. So take this transmission seriously. Don't play small with it. Don't treat it like entertainment. This is physics braided with prophecy, science fused with spirit. The timeline is volatile. The breakthrough is ready. The only ingredient missing is your broadcast. The promise is simple. Coherence stabilizes, and your life becomes unrecognizable in the best way. The urgency is undeniable. Hesitate, and the old loop will reclaim your energy, recycling you back into familiar misery. The choice, as always, is yours. But hear this. Few are given the clarity you're holding right now. Fewer still act on it. You've been selected because the field trusts you will. And as we move deeper, the transmission will shift from explanation into action. Because knowing isn't enough. The breakthrough must be sealed. And the way you seal it is far simpler and far stranger than you expect. Now the field asks for a ritual. Not because the universe is superstitious, but because your nervous system needs a marker, a clear, embodied punctuation that says, "This is the moment I choose coherence." Rituals are not magic tricks. They are engineering tools for attention. They translate intention into physiology. They move your choice out of the abstract and into the tissue. That's what seals a phase transition. That's what stops the loop from replaying. I want you to imagine something cinematic. A door of smoked glass standing in the middle of your day. On the other side of that door is the timeline where your life reorganizes around hidden coherence. You can see light moving behind it, people moving without strain, opportunities stacking like stair steps, your body humming with ease. The door is slightly ajar, but a draft keeps it from closing. This ritual is the hinge oil. It's what lets the door swing fully and lock. Begin by placing one palm on your heart and one palm on your belly. Ground your feet so they feel heavy and true. If you're sitting, anchor both feet to the floor. Close your eyes. You are now a technician of attention. Inhale slowly for a count of 6. Feel the ribs expand like a bell. Hold for a count of 2. Exhale for a count of 8, letting the shoulders drop, letting the jaw soften. Repeat this 3 times. The rhythm is deliberate. Longer out. Breaths settle your autonomic system into receptivity. Your body is listening. Your breath is the metronome. Now visualize a thin filament of light running from your crown down through your spine, out the soles of your feet, and into the planet. A cable of coherence. As you breathe, imagine that filament brightening. With each in-breath, it warms. With each out-breath, it hums. Feel micro-changes. A slight warmth in the chest, a softening behind the eyes, a mild ringing at the base of the skull. These are calibration signals. Honor them, don't analyze. Receive. Next, choose a single word that will serve as your lock. One word, simple and unambiguous. Not a sentence, not a prayer with conditions. A single, active verb that will anchor the frequency. I want you to type or say that word now. If you're watching this with a comments box below, type exactly harmonize. If you're not in a comments environment, whisper it aloud or write it on a sticky note and place it where you'll see it for the next 3 days. The field loves clarity. Single word broadcasts cut through interference. As you press send, or as you whisper the word, do the following. Press your palms together in front of your heart like a prayer, but keep them slightly apart, so a sliver of space remains. That small gap is symbolic. It's where signal meets surrender. Imagine that your palms are 2 antennas aligning. When they meet, coherence completes the circuit. Hold that position for 7 breaths. With each breath, feel the word harmonize vibrate through your chest like a tuning fork. Don't intellectualize the sensation. Notice the body responding, pulses settling, a warmth spreading, a small unclenching. This is the sealing. Here's the mechanics behind the theater. The act of choosing a single word, the physical ritual of breath and posture, the sensory attention you give to the moment together. They generate a phase-locked loop. Your nervous system no longer wanders while the field guesses your intent. It locks into a frequency. The entanglement that felt scattered becomes focused. Your DNA receives a clean instruction set. The morphic field next door reads the code and rewrites micro-registries to accept the new pattern. In short, ritual translates your choice into measurable biology. Role play with me now for 30 seconds. Imagine you are an architect. The room before you is a ruin of old wiring, frayed identity, flickering trust, burnt-out dreams. You walk in with a single tool, the tuning fork of your chosen word. Strike it. The pitch spreads through the wires. Solder begins to glow. Old circuits that snapped under stress reform into circuits that carry light, not heat. You don't build everything in one night, but you begin the repair. You begin the relay. That is what your word does. After your ritual, keep one tiny practice for the next 3 days. Every time you wash your hands, take 3 mindful breaths and say your words silently. That simple repetition acts like a heartbeat for the new wiring. Ritual requires repetition to consolidate, but not repetition that keeps you stuck, repetition that integrates. This is the difference between obsessive rehearsal and physiological commitment. One more practical instruction. If a mirror appears in your life, a person who resurrects the old loop, don't argue with them. Instead, maintain your ritual posture for a few breaths, palm to heart. Whisper your word internally. Let their noise pass through the new antenna. You're not being rude. You're conserving field coherence. People will test the new signal because entangled systems seek balance. Your calm is the test. Pass it by staying anchored. Finally, understand the social consequences of sealing your shift. Some relationships will elevate because they were ready to tune with you. Others will drop away because they were not. This is not punishment. It's natural selection of resonance. You are clearing space for the new architecture of your life. Trust the attrition as much as you celebrate the arrivals. Now, with your palms still warm from the prayer posture, open your eyes slowly. Look around as if the room itself were slightly different because it is. You have just performed an act of field engineering. The door is no longer ajar. The hinge has been oiled. The timeline is listening. As you step forward from this ritual, remember the single word you chose. It's your lock, your signal, your contract with the field. Keep it simple. Keep it active. Keep returning to the breath-body-word sequence whenever the noise gets heavy. You've converted intention into physiology. You've sealed the shift. Next, we'll look at how your personal upgrade radiates outward, how your liberation catalyzes a collective rise. The planet is keeping score, and your coherent broadcast is already writing a new line in the ledger. When you sealed the shift breath, palms, that single word vibrating in your chest, you didn't only recalibrate your own circuitry, you nudged a web. Coherence is contagious because fields are networks. Networks are ecosystems. Ecosystems respond when a node changes its behavior. You are that node. Your liberation is an energetic contagion that ripples outward, and those ripples arrive as practical, measurable changes in other people's lives, long before those people themselves realize why things have shifted. Picture this. You walk into a cafe with the word still sitting like an ember behind your sternum. A stranger orders the exact phrase you were about to write in your journal. A friend calls with an apology you'd been waiting years to hear. A project you hesitated on suddenly gets a green light. These are not coincidences, they are echoes. Your coherent broadcast subtly alters probability gradients around you, making certain outcomes more likely and others less so. The morphic field, call it the collective memory, call it the living library of patterns, notes your new frequency and offers alternatives it had been withholding in case you weren't ready. This is why people call certain individuals change makers or healers, but those labels are clumsy. You are not performing change for spectacle, you are a retuner. You model a different operating system for reality, and that demonstration reduces the activation energy required for others to do the same. Think of a neural network. When one node fires in a new pattern reliably, connected nodes begin to adapt because the network seeks efficiency. Your coherence creates shortcuts. People close to you, family, colleagues, even casual acquaintances, experience less friction. Habits that once required drama now dissolve into simpler choices. That's how a single aligned person catalyzes a neighborhood, a small company, a community. And here's something stranger. The effect compounds with time. A single coherent broadcast today makes tomorrow's broadcasts easier, not just for you, but for those entangled with you. Your presence shifts the baseline of what's considered normal in the morphic field. Over weeks, months, years, those incremental shifts fold into culture. The language people use softens, the metrics of success change. The field begins to prefer sustainability over frantic achievement, because coherence rewards sustainability. You're not just changing feelings, you're altering selection pressures in social systems. This collective expansion is not always visible in headlines. Often, it arrives as quieter phenomena. Fewer arguments around the dinner table, a workplace meeting that resolves in 30 minutes rather than 3 hours, a teenager in your circle discovering curiosity instead of cynicism, an elder experiencing a small alleviation of chronic pain. These micro-shifts accumulate into macro redesigns. The planet doesn't need everyone to become enlightened overnight. It needs enough coherent nodes to shift the probability function. You are one of those nodes. That's why your breakthrough was never only about ambition or personal comfort. It's about contribution. Of course, you'll meet resistance, not from cosmic bureaucracy, but from the inertia of habituated systems, people tethered to old identities, leaders who benefit from chaos, business models built on scarcity, family roles shaped by survival, feel threatened by a new possibility. Their reactions can be loud: confusion, projection, passive aggression, sudden requests for your old self. Don't personalize it. They are not attacking you. They are defending the familiar maps that once kept them safe. When your frequency changes, it creates a mismatch. Some will adapt with curiosity, others will double down on what they know. Your role isn't to convince either. It's to persist in coherence, so their systems can either upgrade or naturally reorganize without your being dragged into repair duty. There is a practical side to this expansion as well. As your field harmonizes, opportunities arrive that are more attuned to your values, not merely your skill set. Collaborators show up who speak the language of integrity. Resources converge that mirror your intent. Doors open to platforms where your message scales. This is not privilege, it's resonance. The universe loves an amplifier. When you become one, amplification follows. You may find yourself in rooms you never planned to enter, conversations with policymakers, invitations to mentor, unexpected partnerships. These are not accidents. They're emergent properties of a field that recognizes coherence and elevates it. Your collective effect bubbles into technology and culture too. Algorithms notice engagement patterns. When more people interact with content rooted in coherence rather than sensationalism, platform dynamics tilt. Products shift toward longevity. Funding flows toward enterprises that prioritize regenerative design. The ripple from a single human doesn't immediately rewrite the matrix, but it adds weight to trends already in motion. Multiply your presence by dozens, hundreds, thousands, and the statistical pull becomes undeniable. That's the mathematics of a movement. Individual coherence scales into systemic possibility. So act like the node you are. Continue practicing the ritual. Maintain the micro-commitments, breath, word, posture that keep your field clean. Create public artifacts that carry your frequency. A brief, calm commentary in a meeting. A short, honest post that refuses sensational hooks. A quiet mentorship that passes tools rather than demands. These artifacts are seeds. They plant coherence in places your daily presence cannot reach. When someone reads your words down the line, their nervous system may receive an instruction your body once sent in person. That's the power of cultural entanglement. Also, allow yourself to be supported. Collective expansion doesn't mean you bear everything alone. It means you allow others to reflect your coherence back to you. Find a few companions who can hold the same frequency, people who remind you of your word when doubt surfaces, who practice the same ritual, who celebrate steady progress rather than dramatic proof. Networks of coherence are self-sustaining. You will be tempted to perform for validation. Resist it. The field you cultivate isn't for applause, it's for restoration. Finally, recognize the ethical gravity of this expansion. Coherence is powerful. It can be misdirected. Use your recalibration to create space, not to dominate. Let your frequency invite, not enforce. The best transmissions are soft but irresistible. They don't coerce, they model a living alternative. When people choose to step toward that model, their agency remains intact. That is how a healthy morphic field evolves. Through invitations that respect autonomy, you are doing more than changing your life. You are contributing to a planetary correction in which coherence becomes a viable cultural option. Your small acts of presence are the scaffolding for a larger human reconfiguration. Keep tending the frequency. Keep sending out your single word with breath and intention. The world is listening. The field is rearranging. The times are calling for networks of people who remember how to harmonize. You are one of those people. Next, we will tune the message into sensation, because ideas become real only when your body recognizes them. Prepare to feel the upgrade in every fiber of your being. Ideas spark awareness. Ritual seals intent. But embodiment, that's where the transmission becomes undeniable. Your mind may still whisper doubts. Your circumstances may still look halfway between collapse and birth, but your body never lies. It is the tuning fork, the resonator, the biological amplifier of coherence. And right now, your body is already feeling the ripple of your shift, even if your mind hasn't caught up yet. Close your eyes for a moment and scan yourself. Notice the subtle tingles that appear when you recall your word. The way your chest lifts just slightly higher when you exhale with presence. The way your skin seems to buzz, as if tiny static sparks are moving across the surface. These aren't random sensations. They are field translations. Your nervous system is broadcasting its new coherence through tactile language. Think of it like this. The quantum field is not abstract. It enters you through sensation. Coherence feels like warmth that doesn't need a source. It feels like sudden coolness washing through your spine at 2 a.m. It feels like goosebumps from a sentence you didn't expect to resonate so deeply. These micro moments are physics made flesh. When entanglement harmonizes, the body is first to notice. Let's map it. Coherence often begins in the heart, a spreading warmth, a gentle pulse that feels slightly larger than your ribcage. From there, it radiates upward into the throat, sometimes a lump, sometimes an expansion, often tears without story. The throat is where truth tests its courage. Then the crown, a light pressure, as if a hand rests gently at the top of your head. That's the antenna widening. Meanwhile, the gut reorganizes too. Contractions you once called anxiety reveal themselves as anticipation. A flutter, a rearrangement of microbiome signals, the body shifting to digest a new kind of future. This is why butterflies in the stomach are not nervousness but readiness. Your system is literally recalibrating to carry a new signal. Your DNA, the spiraling antenna, uncoils a little further. In labs, biophotons, tiny packets of light are emitted by cells when coherence rises. Your body is glowing microscopically, broadcasting its shift into the room. That's why some people suddenly stare at you, unsettled or intrigued, unable to explain why. They are reading your light unconsciously. Role-play this with me for a moment. Imagine you are in a crowded room, maybe a subway car, maybe a classroom. You say nothing, you do nothing. Yet someone near you adjusts their posture, inhales deeper, or quiets down. They don't know why, but you do. Your field has entrained theirs. Their body, hungry for coherence, borrowed yours as a tuning fork. You didn't push, you radiated. This is the quiet revolution of embodied sensation. And there's more. Once you start noticing, you can direct it. Next time your palms heat or your skin tingles, instead of brushing it off, pause, breathe into it. Imagine the sensation spreading 1 inch wider than your body, then 2, then 3. Within minutes, your coherent field expands to fill the room. Do it during a difficult conversation and notice how the atmosphere shifts. Do it while working on a project and watch solutions emerge faster. Do it before sleep and dreams become more lucid, more instructive. You are no longer a passive experiencer of coherence. You are an architect of it. But beware, the body will also flush static as it upgrades. Old traumas stored in tissue rise as aches. Memories long ignored appear as nausea, fatigue, or tremors. This isn't regression, it's detox. Just as a river must push debris downstream to run clear, your body expels density to sustain coherence. Honor it. Hydrate, move, breathe. Don't interpret it as failure. It is evidence of transformation. Your role here is to trust sensation over narrative. The mind may argue, nothing is changing, but the body proves otherwise. Notice how your breathing finds rhythm easier, how your sleep carries you deeper, how laughter arrives more spontaneously. These are not small upgrades. They are seismic indicators that your coherence is stabilizing. And notice too how the environment confirms it. Animals may approach more easily. Children may trust you faster. Plants may thrive in your presence. This isn't mysticism, it's resonance. Life recognizes coherence because coherence reduces entropy. You become a pocket of order in a chaotic field, and systems near you instinctively align. You'll see it in elevators, in grocery lines, in casual encounters that suddenly feel profound. Embodied coherence leaks everywhere. Now, let's push this further. Imagine walking barefoot on Earth at dusk. Each step grounds charge, releasing the static of survival, absorbing the rhythm of planet heartbeat. Imagine sunlight striking your face in morning silence. That warmth is photons entangled with your DNA, instructing cells to reset circadian rhythm, recalibrate hormones. These are not poetic metaphors. They are daily invitations to embodiment. When you accept, you anchor coherence in biology until it becomes default, not practice. So here's your exercise. 3 times a day, pause and run a full-body check. Ask, what sensation is announcing coherence right now? Don't force an answer. It may be subtle, tingling fingers, warmth in thighs, coolness in lungs. Label it gently. Then imagine amplifying it, letting the sensation carry a message into your cells. We are harmonized. We are entangled with hidden coherence. Repeat until the body believes what the mind still doubts. And when doubt grows loud, return to ritual, word, breath, palms, sensation. Anchor the upgrade in tissue until no external storm can dislodge it. Because the truth is this: once you feel coherence in your body, you cannot be convinced it isn't real. You've tasted the voltage, you've lived the sensation, and sensation is prophecy. Your biology has already rehearsed the future. Your mind is still negotiating. The phase transition is not coming, it is happening. And as the embodied resonance grows, the pressure on your DNA intensifies. The spiral antenna stretches toward a new octave, preparing for breakthrough. That's where we go next. Into the spiral itself, into the secret moment when your very code rewrites and the timeline reshapes under your feet. The pressure you feel now is not panic, it's physics. Phase transitions don't whisper, they compress. They apply an inward force until the system can no longer remain the same. Your life is under that compressive field. You can either fold into the old pattern or undergo a structural leap. This is the moment your DNA begins to answer, literally changing the grammar of your biology to match the new timeline you've been broadcasting. Imagine your DNA as a library of potential scripts, some dusty, some bookmarked, some edited, and waiting to be published. For most of your life, the librarian followed a default protocol. Cue the old chapters, reinforce the familiar narratives. But as coherence rose, a different librarian stepped in, one with keys to hidden shelves, to annotated volumes from futures you once skirted. These pages are not fantasy. They are encoded options, epigenetic markers that can be expressed when the environment signals permission. Your ritual, your breath, your single-word lock. These were permission slips. Now the transcription machinery leans in. At the molecular level, the cell's machinery hears you. Methyl groups attach or detach at your instruction. Histones loosen or tighten their grip. Gene expression shifts like traffic, rerouting after a roadblock clears. Proteins begin to fold in patterns optimized for resilience, for clarity, for reception. You feel this as strength where there was weakness, as clarity where there was fog. The physical changes are subtle. At first, sleep deepens, inflammation eases, digestion normalizes, but they compound week after week into a physiology that supports the life you intend to live. This is the breakthrough the esoteric teachings hinted at, and the scientists are beginning to measure. Consciousness influencing biology through sustained coherence. You aren't waiting for a miracle, you are becoming one. The timeline does not change because a goal is achieved. It changes because your cellular architecture now prefers a different set of outcomes. In quantum terms, probability amplitudes reweight. The likelihood of the new scenario inflates, the old scenario deflates. That reweighting is what you perceive as sudden shifts. Jobs offered, relationships redefining, a body that no longer tolerates toxic rhythms. It feels abrupt because a new attractor basin opens and your trajectory snaps into it. Pressure will intensify as the collapse approaches. Expect a squeeze that feels existential. Moral dilemmas sharpen. Loyalties are questioned. Old comforts begin to sting. That's the field testing its readiness. Entangled systems, people, projects, places adjust by either harmonizing or falling away. This is not punishment, it's pruning. A tree needs some branches removed to grow new ones. The shock is temporary, the net gain is structural integrity. You are being prepped to carry a higher bandwidth. You may experience nights of vivid downloads. DNA doesn't rewrite through thought alone, it uses repetition, sensation, and context. When you sleep, your brain consolidates the day's coherence into protein production and cellular instruction. Dreams become directives. Pay attention to them. They are not random. A repeated image, a recurring phrase, a symbol, these are molecular memos being translated. Act on their micro-instructions. Adjust a schedule, change a diet, speak a boundary, stop an argument before it starts. Small alignment choices create the biochemical scaffolding for the major shift. There is a palpable timeline shift as this process accelerates. Parallel versions of you line up like train cars, approaching the same platform. Once they phase lock, you step across, and the scenery reads differently. Opportunities that once required force now slide toward you as if following gravity. Relationships reorganize to match your new field. Creativity flows with fewer edits. Your body responds with an ease that used to be foreign. The change is less a new acquisition and more a reclamation, a return to an operating system you once embodied before compromise rewired you for survival. But remember, entanglement means your choices ripple both ways. Your future self is reaching back to stabilize this moment, and your present choice is sending permission forward. That two-way exchange is why pressure feels like culpability. Sometimes the field is asking you to be faithful to the version already waiting. This is the gravity that makes betrayal of the self unbearable. When you say yes to old patterns now, you actively prevent futures that sought you. That's why the decision feels moral. It's an energetic pact. Practical steps right now are blunt instruments of integrity. Simplify your inputs. Reduce stimulants that create noisy fields, sugar, doom scroll loops, obligations that drain. Increase clean rhythms, exposure to sunlight, grounding with bare feet, intermittent fasting that gives cells a reparative window, movement that shakes out old tension. Continue your breath and word ritual. but add a new discipline. A 3-minute cold exposure each morning if you can tolerate it. Cold tightens the system and silences frivolous signals. It trains your autonomic system to favor coherence over panic. If cold isn't possible, a short, fasted walk in natural light will suffice. These are not dogma, they are physics, compatible practices that support the molecular rewrite. Expect relational realignment. Some will celebrate you, others will test you. The entangled mirror often throws the hardest scenes right before the final fold, because your field is asking, can this relationship hold the new pressure? The answer arrives as proof. If it holds, it returns stronger, more honest, with new edges. If it cannot, it will fall away, sometimes rapidly. Grieve what leaves, celebrate what stays. Both are proof the field is doing its job. Finally, honor humility. DNA breakthroughs are profound, but they're not magical immunity. Coherence doesn't exempt you from human complexity. You will still get tired, still need support, still make errors. The difference is that errors no longer define you. They become feedback loops informing the recalibration. Your job is to stay honest with feeling and return to practice quickly. The collapse nears. You will know it by its signature, a felt solidity, as if the weather inside your bones has changed. When it lands, you will not have to shout your truth. It will be audible in the architecture of your life. Pathways will align, doors will open without strings attached. Your timeline will reshape not because fate decided it, but because your coherent broadcast reweighted the probabilities in favor of the you who already existed on a higher octave. Breathe into that pressure. It is the sculptor's hand. Yield not out of fear, but in fidelity. The phase transition wants you intact on the other side, not remade into someone new, but returned to who you were always meant to be. Coherent, entangled on purpose, and ready to lead the next network of human possibility. And now we arrive at the truth that has been waiting behind every word of this transmission. Your shift is not only your own, it is humanity's. You were never evolving in isolation. You've been entangled with the collective all along. Every coherent breath you've taken, every ritual you've sealed, every embodied sensation you've trusted has been writing code into the morphic field. That field belongs to all of us, which means your liberation becomes our map. This is the paradox of destiny. It feels intimate, private, whispered only in your bones. Yet as soon as you answer, the echo resounds through generations. Children not yet born will benefit from the DNA breakthroughs you stabilize today. Ancestors who carried trauma in silence feel their load lightened because you altered the field they passed down. You are the hinge of lineage, the place where what was unfinished is resolved, and what was impossible becomes accessible. The mission isn't to preach or convert or force others awake. The mission is to embody coherence so fully that your presence itself becomes a transmission, to walk into chaos and stabilize it without demanding credit, to radiate harmony into spaces that expect noise, to live in such resonance with your hidden coherence that people remember what they forgot simply by standing near you. And do not mistake this for loneliness. The more you live from this coherence, the more others attuned to the same octave will find you. Like stars forming constellations, you will link with fellow antennas until the night sky of humanity sparkles differently. Networks of coherence will arise in places once abandoned. Cities will hum with new rhythms. Systems once built on fear will falter under the weight of a quieter truth. That coherence is more contagious than control. This is your cosmic assignment, to be a living example of entanglement harmonized, to show what it looks like when DNA accepts the invitation to restructure, when time obeys coherence instead of chaos, when a single life reshapes probability for thousands more, not by heroic performance, but by ordinary embodiment, by breathing, by choosing, by anchoring again and again. And so I leave you with this prophetic reminder. The day you harmonize entanglement, your timeline reshapes into hidden coherence instantly, not gradually, not someday, instantly. The shift is already happening, right now, as your body listens to these words, as your cells register their new instructions, as your heart steadies into the rhythm of truth. From this moment forward, you are not only living your life, you are carrying the blueprint for humanity's evolution. Walk with it, guard it, radiate it. The universe has entrusted you with this coherence because it knows you will use it well. You are the hinge, the bridge, the living proof that destiny is not fixed, it is tuned, and tonight, you have tuned it. The mission is alive in you now. Step forward, the field is listening, and it will answer.